I was asked about The Wizard of Oz. So, for some time now, I've been sharing my interpretation of The Wizard of Oz, and I understand, that it has political commentary and that the characters play roles that are fundamentally different than the perspective that I now hold. And in short fashion, I began to connect to the characters. So, in my infancy, not necessarily when I was younger, but just in my infancy and early stages of connecting connecting with my world, I watched it and said, "Oh, it's a little girl, who's upset because her dog was taken away, and she runs away and tries to get back, and then goes on this wonderful dream journey, and encounters all these different experiences, and then she wakes up to the love of her family." And then one day I saw it and said, "Okay, hold up, I'm Dorothy." Because if you don't know anything deep about the story, it's just what I said. It's a young girl who has a dog that she loves. From her standpoint, that was taken away from her. She rebelled and ran away from her aunt and her uncle, and then went down this yellow brick road, down this proverbial journey where she's fighting to get back to Kansas. How am I Dorothy? Dorothy for me represents vitality and represents youthfulness, represents this notion of creating structures in our lives. And that her journey began because of a level of irresponsibility on her behalf. Yes, her dog was taken by Mrs. Gulch, who also plays the character of the Wicked Witch. However, Mrs. Gulch says in a conversation while at the home of her aunt, or at the home of Dorothy's aunt and uncle, "I'm taking this dog because I'm tired of it running through my rose bushes or through her yard," or something specific. The point is, this had been a habitual pattern of behavior. So how many times have we engaged, or speaking for me, have I engaged in a behavior that demonstrated immaturity, an opportunity to grow, didn't want to grow, and then wanted to blame everybody for my circumstance? Well, the great thing about blame for me is defined as the lack of personal or the absence of personal responsibility. So her journey took me through a moment in my life where I could go, okay, things are spinning out of control, the tornado. I've landed in a new place, so it might be a new situation or circumstance, a new relationship that's ending, or it might have been a financial experience for somebody. For somebody else, it may have looked like physical death that had them wake up to things need to look different. And so she goes on this journey, and I'm going on the journey as the viewer, and I'm only meeting through her journey, our collective journey, versions of myself. So the Munchkins, the time where I recognize I'm small yet powerful, small in the sense of the universe, yet powerful and significant. They also represent the times where I've diminished myself and felt small in the presence of others. I'm not going to go through all of it. The Scarecrow, times where I've dumbed myself down. But in the movie, she asks, which way should I go? And he goes, this way or that way, right? Where I've been indecisive. Tin Man represents love. The times where I did not give and or receive love in equal measure, and became rusted in my ways. The Cowardly Lion, the moments where I tried to look like I was in control, big and bad, and I'm roaring, but just as scared of being disliked, disapproved of, right? Like those were all versions of Dorothy, i.e., all versions of me, because I connected to the story as Dorothy. Then the opportunity to challenge something. The Wicked Witch could mean a lot of things, but what if it just represented the shadow self? Like the shadow self is a version of ourselves that can come out when there's injury or a wound that comes into play, and it hides in the subconscious, right? Or it demonstrates aberrant behavior. So the times where I've been the Wicked Witch and the times where I've been Glinda the Good Witch. And I love the part in the movie where the Wicked Witch writes in the sky on her broom, surrender, right? Now, it could be taken as Dorothy surrender those ruby red shoes to me. But for me, it always suggested that I just surrender to whatever the challenge is. Allow myself to acknowledge that this moment, this situation, this experience just is what it is. And I only feel what I feel about it based on my interpretation of it. So if I just surrender, then maybe things will melt away. Like when Dorothy threw water, which we know water is used as purification. And the witch, the ugliness, melts away, dissipates, disappears, right? And then the times where I've gone to people looking for help, I mentioned this in a previous clip, where she jumps in the basket with the man that pretends to know it all. And then for me, total represents purpose, because purpose for me always takes me down a path that I could never envision myself going down. And quite frankly, didn't necessarily want to go down. So total jumps out of the basket. Her love for total has her jump out, and then the basket takes off. And she's left clicking her heels going within. And more often than not, I found that when I looked for any answer outside of myself, that journey only ever took me in, so that like at the end of the movie, I would wake up with a new understanding, wake up with a new awareness, wake up with a new connection. And for Dorothy, she always ever wanted love, which was represented by Total's unconditional love. And she wakes up at the end and says, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. And she's pointing to the people in her life that she now recognized that she could create a new relationship with. And, in my own life, I've had the opportunity to wake up and recognize, oh, snap, I can see and be in relationship in a different way with myself, with the people that I'm close to, and just with the world in general. So the question about, me sharing about the Wizard of Oz, that's the older meaning. There's another one that maybe I'll cover later that gets more into how she represents the energy that moves through our body. But that's for another time. Enjoy your journey.